It's May 16, 2024. The time is now 5 p.m. I'm going to call to order the St. Louis Community College Board of Trustees regular board meeting. Can we have roll call, please?
Doris Graham.
Here.
Craig Larson. Mary Lutke.
Here.
Nicole Robinson.
Here.
Kevin M. Martin.
Here.
Rodney G.
Here.
Thank you. Welcome to all our guests as you're finishing up the semester and getting ready for commencement on Sunday. We look forward to seeing folks at commencement to celebrate that, and anyone else here, we are excited to see you here tonight. At this time, are there any citizens wishing to address the board regarding agenda items?
There are none.
Thank you. At this time, is there item 1.4, a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
It's been moved by Larson, second by Graham. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Thank you so much. Item 1.5, approval of April 18, 2024 public session minutes. Is there a motion to approve April 18, 2024 public session minutes?
So moved.
It's been moved by Larson,
Second.
second by G. Any correction, additions, edits? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Thank you so much. Item 2.1, recognition of student and staff accomplishments.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chairman Martin, Chancellor Pittman, trustees, faculty, staff, and guests. We have quite a few recognitions this evening, so I'll try to get through them quickly. Our first group of honorees were chosen to the All-Missouri Academic Transfer Team, sponsored by Phi Theta Kappa and the Missouri Community College Association. The All-Missouri team recognizes high-achieving students who demonstrate academic excellence, intellectual rigor, leadership, and service that extends their education beyond the classroom to benefit society. First, we recognize Luchelle Brown and Corinne Johnson from Florissant Valley. Luchelle is an international student from Jamaica who will graduate with an associate degree in general transfer studies. She serves as vice president of public relations for the Pi Kappa chapter and spearheads the chapter's college project this year. She has been on the Dean's List since 2022 and participated in the Black Male Achievers Academy. She also is a peer leader for TRIO Student Support Services and served as president of the TRIO Student Leadership Board. By participating in numerous campus activities, Luchelle received the college's Rockstar Award in December of 2023. She will transfer to the University of Missouri St. Louis in August to complete a bachelor's degree in psychological sciences. Luchelle hopes to become a clinical psychologist with an emphasis in trauma recovery and abuse and personality disorders. Corinne will graduate with a degree in nursing. Throughout college, Corinne has reshaped her perspective on the importance of service and community by becoming more active in her community and has traveled down a path of growth and leadership. She has become a better student, found her passion, and expanded her career goals. She plans to attend the University of Missouri-Columbia this fall to pursue a bachelor's degree in nursing. Corinne hopes to become an international travel nurse, helping those in need in underprivileged areas. Eventually, she would like to complete a master's degree in nursing and become a clinical educator. We next recognize Kayla Bailey and Kevin Byer from Forest Park. Kayla will graduate with an associate degree in fine arts. She plans to transfer to Southern Illinois University Edwardsville to complete a degree in fine art with a focus in ceramics. Afterwards, she plans to continue to graduate school to pursue a career in art education. While at STLCC, Kayla has completed the requirements of the Forest Park Honors Program. She joined the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society. She served as president of the Forest Park Clay Club and was instrumental in the installation of a series of community murals in the tunnels on the Forest Park campus. And you may know that she has been selected as this year's student commencement speaker this Sunday. Kevin will graduate with his diploma from Clayton High School and an STLCC associate degree in general transfer studies. He plans to transfer to the University of Kansas and was recently accepted into the business leadership program to pursue a degree in finance. Kevin has been a member of Forest Park's Psi Epsilon chapter for his full 2 years at STLCC. During this time, he has served as the chapter president as well as the regional vice president of scholarship. He was named by PTK as a Coca-Cola Leader of Promise Scholar and a Coca-Cola Gold Scholar. Merrimack students named to the All-Missouri team were Carson Crook and Benjamin Elliott. Carson will graduate with his diploma from Fox Run Classical Academy and an STLCC associate degree in General Transfer Studies. He plans to transfer to Belmont University to complete a degree in contemporary music. His ultimate career goal is to master all styles of percussion and then launch a career as a performing musician. While completing STLCC's early college program, Carson has served as president of the Psi Lambda chapter at Merrimack, and he is founder of Merrimack's Music Club. He also has participated in other community service activities. Benjamin will graduate with his diploma from Rockwood Summit High School and an STLCC associate degree in STEM General Transfer Studies. He plans to transfer to Missouri State University to complete a degree in biochemistry. His ultimate career goal is to study at graduate school and eventually become a researcher in the field of protein folding. While completing the early college program at STLCC, Benjamin has been a member of the Phi Theta Kappa, the Student Activities Budget Committee, and Pride Alliance. He also has served as president of the Merrimack Chemistry Club for 2 semesters. At Rockwood Summit, Benjamin played in the symphonic orchestra, and he participated in the state environthon competition. Next, the Wildwood students chosen to the All-Missouri team were Morgan Dibble and Juliana Goodrich. Morgan is a pursuing general STEM transfer degree at STLCC, where she has taken courses at both Wildwood and Merrimack. She has a passion for civil engineering, and she's preparing to transfer to Missouri University of Science and Technology next fall. She will be pursuing a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. Morgan is active outside the classroom, balancing a part-time job with her role as Vice President of Service for Beta Rho Epsilon chapter of Phi Theta Kappa. Juliana will graduate with an associate degree in General Transfer Studies. She has taken an active role on campus, leveraging opportunities to apply her leadership skills. In addition to serving as Vice President of Leadership for Wildwood's Beta Rho Epsilon chapter, she is the Secretary and Communications Officer for the Student Government Association. She is also past president of the Creative Writing Club. After graduation, Juliana intends to channel her passion for music into her career by pursuing a bachelor's degree in music therapy at Maryville University. We would like to congratulate all of these students. We're very proud of their achievements and wish them well as they begin their next phase of academic or career journeys. And if any are here this evening, we would love to take a group photo of you by campus with your advisors up front.
Certainly didn't need to rush through that. That was wonderful.
So good.
See you on Sunday. It's okay.
Our next honoree this evening is Marie McCool, theater manager at Florissant Valley. Marie is the 49th recipient of the David L. Underwood Memorial Lecture Award. Recipients of the Underwood Award demonstrate their namesake's tireless efforts to further the educational mission at Florissant Valley. Chosen by a committee of peers, the recipient exhibits excellence in instruction and a genuine humanistic concern for students, faculty, staff, and all of education. Over the past 32 years, Marie has designed, built, painted, lit, costumed, and produced over 300 theatrical productions in the Terry M. Fisher Theater. 25 of the productions involve the Florissant Valley Theater of the Deaf. In total, thousands of students were involved in over 1,500 theatrical performances that she managed. Her work on Into the Woods in 1995 ranked number 2 in the St. Louis Riverfront Times poll for the best local theater production. As an adjunct professor, Marie has taught both online and in-person classes in theater, deaf communication studies, Smart Start, and oral communication. She views theater as the perfect learning environment where a student can study other disciplines, collaborate on ideas, and see the fruition of their labor. Many of her former students work in professional theaters across the United States. We want to congratulate Marie, and if she is here, come forward for a photo, and along with Janice Nesser-Chu.
Hang on, I have the certificate.
Right about there is where they like it to be held.
Two of the students.
Yeah, I'll get there. Okay. Yes.
Did any of the all Missouri academic team show up late that just came in? If you want to just say your names really quick, and then we already went over your speech, but we'd love for you to come up and get your picture taken as well. What's your guys, both your names?
My name is Corinne Johnson.
Corey?
My name is Michelle Brown.
Great, awesome. So we did get to hear about you already, so come on up from Florissant Valley. Is there someone else back there I see that doesn't want to go up there? Come on back up. I see your picture, Benjamin. Come on up from Merrimack. Anyone else hiding out there from Missouri, all of Missouri? Dr. Davis, don't think you run away. You next.
Next up, we would like to recognize Christine Davis, Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs. Christine has been named by the Aspen Institute College Excellence Program as one of the 40 leaders selected for the 2024 Aspen Rising Presidents Fellowship. This program aims to select and prepare the next generation of presidents who can lead institutions to higher and more equitable levels of student success. The institutions they represent range from small rural colleges to large urban campuses. The fellows are selected through a competitive process and will work closely with highly accomplished community college presidents and thought leaders for over 10 months to learn from field-leading research, examine demographic and labor market conditions in their communities, assess student outcomes at their colleges, and advance a clear vision for excellent and equitable outcomes for students while in college and after they graduate. Congratulations to Christine.
Dr. Davis gets to come up and take a picture. And I assume this fellowship means you have to lock into not leaving STLCC either, so.
It didn't say that, but.
She's trying to unmask everybody.
Finally, we will honor 6 STLCC faculty members who are on the board's agenda for promotion and rank tonight. We will recognize them by campus, and each president announcing the names of their respective faculty members, and we'll begin with Florissant Valley and Dr. Elizabeth Perkins.
I'm a lot shorter than Bill. Thank you so much. This evening, I am so proud to announce that we have 2 faculty members who are recommended for promotion. They are Elva Maxine Beach, who will be promoted to full professor in English, and Carrie Jansen, who is now an associate professor in biology. Congratulations to each of you.
Take one and hop. You would if you had Carrie.
That's what I was gonna say.
Next is Dr. Julie Fickus, who will announce Forest Park's faculty promotion. Dr. Fickus.
Thank you very much. I am pleased to announce that 3 faculty members have been promoted. They are Megan Cotter, who is now an assistant professor in nursing, Maria Darris, who now is an associate professor in nursing, and Karma Lashley, who now is an assistant professor in nursing. I don't believe I saw any of them here this evening. But congratulations.
And now Dr. Felicia Moore Davis will announce Merrimack's faculty promotion. Dr. Moore Davis.
Thank you. Tonight, we are announcing Merrimack's faculty promotion. I am pleased to announce that one faculty member has been promoted. She is Jennifer Lorenz, who now is an associate professor in criminal justice. Congratulations to all of you. Jennifer is not able to make it tonight.
Congratulations to all the faculty members, and thank everyone who's rewarded tonight. We thank you for your service, your hard work, expanding minds and changing the lives of our students, and that concludes tonight's presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It's always exciting to hear, especially for our faculty members and our students who are doing great things. And so for those of you graduating on Sunday, we look forward to seeing you there. Those of you graduating high school and the college, that's even more exciting that you get two pieces of paper in 1 month. So certainly something to celebrate as you do that. So thank you so much for joining. If you don't want to stay, we're getting to the fun stuff of finances. Now's a great time to exit. But if you'd like to stay for the rest of the meeting, you are welcome to stay. But this is the fun part about finances, and budget will be next. So if you'd like to leave, now's a great time to leave before we get started. Mark, I didn't even introduce your name yet, and they still left.
I'm used to it.
Yes. Now that half the people have left, Mark, the floor is yours for the third quarter financial report.
The third quarter reports are in the business and finance section. I'm going to get a brief report on a PowerPoint, and if you have any questions at the end, if I haven't answered them, feel free to ask them. The third quarter starts out with the general operating fund, which had $162 million approximately in revenue versus $106 million in expenses. And then, of course, we have transfers on top of that, transfers and expenses. The March 31st of 23, you'll see that when we'll talk about the revenue differences and the expense differences, but 157 million and versus $95 million in expenditures. On the revenue side, you can see that the total difference, actually some of the numbers on 23 versus 24 are about as close as you can get. If you look at the tuition for our maintenance fees, for example, they're just $100 difference. But the primary difference is the other income, which is investment income, which we've made a concerted effort to increase investment income. It's the entire difference is related to investment income through the third quarter. On the expenditure side, you'll see that salaries and wages, almost all of them are contractual increases or filled. But the $67.3 million in salaries and wages, which is up about $5 million, is still at 73% plus of the budget amount. So we're within budget. The benefit amount is too high, and from for those of you, not to get in the weeds on accounting, we use an estimate. We call it the composite fringe rate, and that's established for 24 was established as of 22 numbers. So there was an error, not an error, but a difference in the composite rate. That's probably about $3 million too high. And so that'll come down as a result of our audit adjustments at the end of the year.
$3 million too high as a budget estimate or as actual expenditures?
Actual. That 22.6 is about $3 million too high. It's not too high from an accounting standpoint because that's how we record this stuff. But I'm telling you that there's a variance between what we've experienced as our benefits and what the actual and what our estimate is. And that's around $3 million. So that will come down. But that number, even at 22.6, is still at 73%. So it's not, we're well within budget on all of these items.
And both of those increases for salary and wages is what you anticipated based on the...
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we budgeted for.
Perfect.
So, like I said, it's 73.6, I believe is the number, percent of the, which through the third quarter would be 75%. So we're well within budget. Our quarterly utility expenditure report, you'll notice that the water shows that it's higher than last year.
Where's the water leak?
We had the water leak in the first quarter, and so the difference at the first quarter, just to tell you, was $55,000, and now this is $53,000. So it's all related to that in the first quarter. Everything else is coming in. You'll notice that gas, we've been doing really well on gas. For those of you who may have forgot, we do futures contracts. We enter into futures contracts for selling of gas, and that has benefited us greatly because of gas prices going up. And Spire has a much higher rate than what we were able to buy in the marketplace.
Mark, really quick, just out of curiosity, you might not have it now, but at the end of the year, I'm just curious, how much new square footage do we have as of now versus, I know we've taken some buildings down and added, so I'm just curious because obviously we know utilities are going to change.
Right.
How much additional square footage do we have at this point, if you know?
I don't know that number, but we can get that for you.
Just at the end of the year, I think it'd be interesting to see at the end of the year how much total new square footage do we have and how much did our utilities increase based on new square footage?
The only question I would have is how you calculate that. I mean, is if the building is contracted for, but it hasn't been built yet, or it's in the process, we'll give you the net square footage is what we'll give you. Technology fee, these numbers are all well within in the budget numbers. There's nothing significant that I noted in the technology fee that we need to discuss unless you have something later in the conversation here. As it relates to college and student activities, you'll notice that we are up significantly on the expenditures and transfers. This is for student-related travel and field trips, and I believe that it's well within budget, so it's not there's no issue. Actually, that's 46% of the budget budgeted amount. That amount has gone up significantly as we've come further and further out of COVID. We have more and more trips. So
the fee still appropriate, I assume then?
Yeah. On public safety, pedestrian, and traffic, I don't see that Rodney's still on here, but last time we reported we bought $106,000 worth of defibrillators. And I wanted to address a comment that you made last quarter, Rodney. The risk management team, which is in this case Brad Ziegler, has gone out and done training. As we get closer to July 1st, we're implementing a new software program called SkillSoft. Eliminating our safe colleges, that has training for the defibrillators in there. So we are, and they have provided training as needed.
Rod, you have a
Thank you.
Okay.
No, I just tell them thank you.
Okay. Student services fee, you'll notice that we have a net increase in fund balance. This is the one where we had talked actually probably 2 years ago about raising it, but we don't need to raise it because the amount that we're spending out of the fund is not reaching into the fund balance, even though that we're budgeting for it. And you'll actually see in the one we're presenting the budget later, we're showing a decrease in the fund balance, but we did last year too. So it's just it's not being deployed at the rate that would to hit those numbers that we had in previous year's budgets.
Mark, with this, I know last quarter, we talked about the grants were just starting in January, if I'm not mistaken, with like Visa cards or checks, whatever it is. Do you know how much of that money, because I think we added $250,000, I can't remember the exact amount we added to give out for grants and covering other things, how much we've expensed from that?
I'll ask Keith in here in a second to come up and answer that. But we allocated $287,000, of which $100,000 we transferred over for food scholarships, if you remember, out of that. So the net number of $187,000. But Keith's here, so he can answer your question.
Thank you.
Of the budgeted amount, $100,000 was allocated for our basic needs scholarship, and we awarded 100% of that over the spring. I'm still waiting to run the numbers on the retention of those students, but our preliminary analysis was that those funds were really helping students stay enrolled, which was the goal. For our food scholarship, we allocated about $75,000, which is just over half of it. Again, that one was a little harder to spend quickly, but I think the students have all reported that it's made a big difference in terms of their ability to address food insecurity, and we have a number of those students that are registered for summer and will be able to use some of that surplus to give them some access to our meal plans over the summer while they're enrolled. So I do anticipate we'll have full utilization of that one next year when we have the program in place the entire academic cycle.
Mark, are we looking at increasing the amount of grant money available if we've done 100%?
As of right now, we are not, but it's always open because there's a fund balance in student services.
I think for me, I would like to see if we run out of money in January, then let's revisit about maybe adjusting the budget at that point. But I don't want us to just limit to think we have to expend it. I'm just one of 7, but certainly I think I would like us to entertain the idea of let's look at where we are after first semester. If we've expended all of it, then let's add more money if we have money in this fund, because I think that's one of the things we created for. Is anyone opposed to that thought process?
Not at all.
Okay. So I think we'll keep it maybe as the same as, and then if we expense it all the first semester, we can come back and revisit that for second semester, because I think we know with inflation, there's a lot of things going on, and we want to make sure we can remove as many barriers as possible.
We'll just have to come back probably in the October, November meeting, because if we come back after,
it's too late.
It's too late.
Yep.
So.
That's good. Come back.
Yep.
Other funds that we have in the reports are rentals of facilities, student aid fund, restricted auxiliary agency, self-insurance, and capital funds. If you have any questions on that, I'll talk to you about those a little bit. I noticed an error on this statement. It says 12/31/23 on the maturity value and market value. It's 3/31. So we will adjust that. But what this shows is that we had approximately $208 million in cash investments as of 3/31/23. Now, and that works out to approximately 13.3 months of the in terms of cash flow, which I've been giving that number in previous quarters. I will point out, though, that 207 compares to the 6/30/23 balance of $216 million. So it's approximately $9 million down from 6/30, but I'm going to come back to that number here in a minute. So we invested, or I invested during the quarter, the excess funds that we could. We were achieving an average, weighted average yield of 5.281%. I noticed that this morning they're up a little bit over that. We could get a 6-month treasury for around 5.43. I'll talk about that later in a minute. The reason why I wanted to tell you about the $207 million versus the $216 million in cash is because that $207 is after we have paid for Transformed. And so if you notice, for 2024, we've paid $64 million we have received reimbursements from the state under the two grants that we have currently. One is the $20 million on the Flo Valley Center for Center for Nursing, and then also $21 million for the Wildwood project. There is another $21 million in the budget that we're hoping that the governor signs, and there's all indications he will for Wildwood. So we would actually, that would go from $41 million to $62 million total for grants. I want to bring up one other point with respect to finances, because we've talked about it the last time, because you approved it in, I believe, in the April meeting. The $225 million that we're talking about getting for a new issue of COPS, I have submitted all the information to Standard & Poor's, and I have a rating call next Thursday at 9:30 a.m. And they're very positive at this point, so I don't see any issues. I'm not sure whether or not we will be able to get from AA+ to AAA because of enrollment concerns that everybody has in the education lane, and but we're doing well on the information I gave them. I gave them our weekly charts, and our weekly charts show that we're up for both the summer and for the fall. So after that ratings call, then we will proceed to the sale, and there's a lot of steps in between, but we're looking at toward the end of June, maybe the 1st of July. I haven't decided. I think I mentioned last time there's some accounting issues with respect to the dollars and how much we show as unrestricted fund balance, but I'll come back to you at the end of at the 27th meeting, and we'll describe how that's going to work. So I'm open for questions on the quarterly reports if there's anything that anybody wants to talk about.
Mark, I just want to echo again, I think on behalf of the board, I think it's really important that we are in a great financial situation, and due to your team and those of others around, whether it's advocating at the state level to get finances and reimbursement, it's been incredible to get that. And I think we are well positioned, and I think it goes back to and maybe an unpopular but important decision the board made some years ago about right sizing and put us in a different pathway, which is never easy to do that, but definitely put us in a different pathway to get to this place of when we did have to make a decision to right size and get us back on track and really be at a place where we have community support to get a bond issue passed. And seeing all these buildings going up is very exciting for the community. And I hear about, Hazelwood, particularly for K-12, is doing a whole bunch at one of their schools for turning into a thematic school, trying to get at least 400 kids in dual enrollment and dual credit starting in next school year. So I think there's a lot of positive things that are happening with the community colleges, whether it's our bachelor's program and other things that are happening that I don't think would have been possible if we weren't as financially sound as we are. So definitely kudos to you and your team, and even looking at how much we're able to invest and get from investments right now and being strategic. I still remember at one point we were sitting in a board meeting and we almost were getting ready to sell all these bonds from Transform and have all this money sitting there and figuring out how we were going to spend it. And I think the board first was presented with, we want 7 years to build all these buildings, and the board pretty much said, go back to the drawing board. We want it cut in half, and Hart's team and your team have been able to make it happen. So certainly just kudos for that, because I think it shows strong fiscal responsibility, great use of taxpayer money and leveraging but more importantly, providing a service to our community, which is whether it's for educating our students or providing services through our allied health programs as well to our community is such an important piece of it. And as I look about apprenticeships, as we grow that program, that's the next key factor I feel like is providing our business workforce, because everyone's facing a labor shortage of how do we get students into high-paying jobs quicker and faster. And certainly I think as colleges are facing across this country of whether they want to go to a four-year institution and get in debt or not, or go into a high-paying job, I think we are certainly on the forefront, which I don't think we were there probably 6 or 8 years ago, of even thinking in terms of how do we change and think rapidly. So I appreciate that, your team, as well as Dr. Pittman and everyone else's efforts. Any other questions, discussion? Didn't want to rant for that long.
Amen.
I have one thing I want to echo on that we always need to consider, and that is now we're at 4 years of the same tuition rates, which compared to other institutions is unheard of. So
and it's extremely low.
It's something we can use as marketing. It's terrific.
Right.
especially for our bachelor's program, when you're looking at our bachelor's program being at such a cheap rate as well. So, yes.
4 years and not tiered.
And not tiered. That tiered is important because other institutions, especially in the community college arena, are going to tiered tuition.
I have multiple conversations trying to help people understand how we're using that money to supplement nursing, which is probably our largest area of growing. It's expensive, but we're doing that because the community needs it.
Well, I'll tell you, I heard this number yesterday because my wife works at SLU, so don't tell anybody I told this. But
You're only on Zoom for everyone to see, but okay.
She was saying that their net tuition, the net tuition for SLU for this year will be $310 million. Ours is going to be 20. And our percentage as to total revenue keeps going down. So if we're at $20 million and we have $200 million, you're at 10%, but we're actually above that. So that number, if it keeps going down as a percentage of our total revenue, it's just that much more benefit we're providing to the community and to the students. So anyway.
Rod, did you have a question? I see you unmuted. Just wanted to make sure.
No, I don't. He answered it.
No, thank you. And again, I think the more we keep advocating to our state legislators about keeping the funding where it's at, that's a big piece of this puzzle. And also to keep on everyone's radar is, the various legislation that's out there about reducing taxes and all that is definitely going to have an impact, as Dr. Pittman's kept us updated on that. So just continue to watch those things and advocate for how the community colleges not just benefit those who are currently in the college, but really the community as a whole, and how it's important service for the entire community. And I'll leave it at that. Next up, it seems like Sherry Kiefer is going to come up and do the fun part, which is our new budget already for June 30th, 2025. Getting old when I hear 2025.
And before she comes up, she can come up while I'm talking, but Sherry has decided that she's going to become the CFO and Vice Chancellor for Finance over at McKendree. And that'll be starting after June 14th. So we have a lot of work we got to get out of her between now and then. But so she's going to primarily present the budget. I can fill in where if I need to. So.
Well, congratulations on your new role over there. I wish you luck, and I know they don't have as much finance fortune as we do right now, but hopefully you'll be able to get them in there. So here's our new budget.
Absolutely, thank you. So we'll start with, for those of you who have seen this before, these are repeats. I always like to include it. I'm not going to spend much time reading it. Don't worry about that. But I'd like to have it in there for reference for people. This is our sections of board policy that relate to the fiscal year budget, talks about the process. We also have some guidelines that we follow to make sure that we are having a good allocation between what's salaries, what's capital. And so we'll revisit these at the end just to show how the budget that we're presenting lines up for those. Administrative procedures gives us some additional detail on how we form the budget. And then there's also language in the revised statutes of Missouri that talk about a balanced budget, except when there's allowed for fund balance usage. So we want to make sure that that's always in the forefront of our budget planning. So we're here tonight to present a draft of the fiscal year 25 budget. It's available on board docs. There's quite a bit of detailed information in there. So the budget's at a high level, but then we also have a lot of assumptions in there that explain what are the changes from last year to this year, what are all the capital projects that are there listed. We do expect that there's going to be some adjustments before the June meeting. Notably, the restricted budget, we're still working on it, so we pulled that out while we work on that. And then we also expect that, as Mark was talking about with the debt, that we'll see some adjustments after that ratings call once we have a little bit closer of what's that going to look like for next year. So we didn't really make any adjustments to the leasehold bond side of that, but you'll see that in the June budget. So we'll start off with the general operating funds. And this is basically all of our day-to-day activity, and it's actually 4 budgets in one. So the operating plus then 3 budgets that are driven by student fee revenue, the technology fee, student services fee, and the college and student activity fee. And even though we're going to always strive for a balanced budget, and our operating budget, which you'll see on the next slide, is in balance, in those student fees, we will plan to use fund balance. This is in line with what you've seen in prior years. You can actually see it on the slide in the summary by millions. It looks like it's about the same. It's actually about $50,000 less that we're proposing of fund balance usage for next year. And again, we take a look at that every year to see what do we project is going to be available. You can see that also in those quarterly financial statements. And for those credit hour fee-based budgets, it's important to us that we're using those fees for what we intended. When we charge the students a technology fee, for instance, we want to make sure that's what it's being used for. So if in a year our revenue exceeds our expenses, it still stays in that designation, almost like a rainy day fund. So in future years, instead of having to raise the fee to students, if we have additional items that we want to pursue, or just, again, escalations in cost, inflation, we can use that fund balance instead of having to go back and raise the fees. So again, this is just showing the operating funds by itself now, so you can see that it is a balanced budget. And now we'll move into each of those kind of major categories of revenue and expenses. This is going to show you the revenue for the past 2 years budget, in that it doesn't change much in terms of the allocations. So even though the dollars may change, overall, from year to year, we're not seeing big shifts. As Mark said, over a period of time, we're seeing maintenance fees decrease, and you can even see that it went from 16% to 15% in the budget. So we're seeing some of those small shifts, but overall, it's about the same allocation of revenue. So our largest area of revenue is local taxes. So you can see on here that this year we're expecting to have about $106 million, close to $107 million in local taxes. This is not a reassessment year for us, so we're projecting our budget for next year to be the same as what we expect to receive this year. Again, that's going to depend on new construction, but we don't expect to see huge changes, unless, of course, there's factors outside of our control. Our next major part is state aid. So that top box is going to show you the reoccurring core and maintenance and repair that carries forward from year to year. And we're projecting a little over $1 million increase for next year. So overall, there was a $5.2 million increase that's right now in the Missouri budget. Again, that's still all subject to being signed and approved. But that then gets divided out amongst the community colleges, and that's based on the 3-year average student count per IPEDS. So of that $5.2 million, that's where we're seeing that we would get a little over $1 million after the 3% governor's withhold. That bottom box there is showing one-time increases, and this is, again, related to deferred maintenance or the actual core funding. We're not talking about those big capital projects. And you can see that in the current year, we actually received about $440,000, even though it looks like there was nothing budgeted or appropriated. That is actually reappropriations from fiscal year 22, when they had allocated $1.5 million in deferred maintenance. And so in spending time with Transformed, our normal maintenance and repair, it actually took us all 3 years to finish spending out that $1.5 million, but we now have spent it all out, as well as receiving all of our maintenance and repair funding for the current year from the state. And then we're also showing that we expect to have that $21 million for Wildwood for next year, as Mark already mentioned. Moving on to maintenance fees. That gray line at the top is showing credit hours, actual and budgeted. And it's really exciting to see, I think for the first time since I've been doing these presentations, that you're seeing an increase in the actual credit hours in each of those years that are presented. And then we are expecting and projecting a moderate increase in online credit hours for next year, which we expect to be related to the drop in the online rate for the Missouri out-of-district and the out-of-state. So at the February board meeting, when you guys approved the rates for next year, we left the maintenance fee rates the same, but for online, we dropped that to $102. Plus then those required fees will bring it to $125 a credit hour. And so just over what our in-district rate is. So with that, and you'll see later in the budget that we have funding set aside for marketing, specifically for that purpose, to make sure that word gets out. So we are expecting to see an increase in the credit hours for that. And credit hours typically is going to translate directly into revenue. And depending on the makeup of those credit hours, you can see some changes. But we are this year expecting to exceed our revenue budget for the maintenance fees. And so we're projecting, again, a modest increase based on that online expected credit hour increase to 29 million. Our last two pieces on the revenue side is continuing education fees and then other income. Continuing education, we're estimating at about $600,000 revenue for this current year, so we're adjusting the budget to that for the next year. The $2.75 million increase in other income relates to interest income. Again, transformed. We have the money right now while we're still working on putting up the buildings and setting that money is set aside for now. So we're looking at an increase in our interest budget for next year. Moving over to the expense side, just like on the revenue, you're not going to see much of a difference in the allocation from year to year, although our salaries are up about, or accounting for 2% more of the total budget. And we'll see on the next slide that the salaries in dollars is up about 5.4 million. This includes about 40 new positions. There's going to be actually a few more than that, but there's some positions that are being repurposed for that funding. So net, it's about 40 full-time positions. 24 of those are funded by STLCC Transformed. So a lot of those are faculty for the new programs, support for the new academic programs, as well as facilities staff to support those new buildings. So a lot of those positions are actually going to be funded for a half a year, with us expecting to hire them in January. The salary budget also includes funding for faculty promotions, includes an increase for our non-unit employees, as well as negotiated increases for our bargaining unit employees. And we still have one bargaining unit that we're working with. And so we have a placeholder for those ongoing union negotiations included in here, but we expect that by the time we come back for the June approval, we'll have that finalized in there. There's also several reclassifications and reorganizations going around, again, as I mentioned, when we're talking about how many net new positions we have. So a lot of those reorganizations relate to pathways, the academic affairs reorg. There's some in human resources, but all of that's been factored into that total change dollar. On the benefit side, even though we're projecting a 5.8% increase in salaries, we're only looking at about a 2.5% increase in benefits. So this goes back to what Mark was explaining about how when we looked at our annual review of that composite fringe rate, we discovered that we maybe had the rates a little bit too high. So we're adjusting those back down to a smaller rate for next year, which is why you see a smaller increase in benefits than what you see on the salary side. Supplies and service is where maybe it's, again, behind salaries and what are the new positions is the point that's probably most interesting to people to see what got funded as far as departmental budget requests. We had about $2 million in requests that we funded. The full list is in the budget book. I have some highlights there on the screen, and you'll notice a theme of transformed. So you have, as I mentioned, increases for marketing for that online rate, marketing increases about transformed, and then marketing increases also to specifically market the new academic programs, including the bachelor's degree, so that everyone understands what great of a deal it is. So we also are establishing those new academic program budgets for the new buildings. Again, probably not at the full amount for next year. Most of those are at 25 or 50%, depending on when we expect those buildings to come online. We also have some IT contract work related to Transformed. So again, there's a lot of movements that need to happen, a lot of new computers, and a lot of network stuff that needs to happen. So we're looking at hiring temporary work for the next 2 years to accomplish that. So again, a lot of theme here of Transformed. And then, of course, we also have contractual increases that are just not near as fun to talk about, but we always want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind when we are looking at the budget. Next up is utilities. In looking at that, again, as we talked about earlier, it's hard to know what's the square footage going to look like, what is that going to mean for our utilities. Right now, we're expecting that we'll be under this budget for the current year, so we're just leaving that the same for next year. When we move into the transfers, this decrease in transfer really relates to Transformed. So we have those 24 new positions that we're funding out of the Transformed, and we'll have a slide on Transformed. We'll make it a little easier to see. But when we look at the $29.5 million that we are allocated to Transformed each year, whatever we're not spending in operating is what gets transferred to capital to be used and added to the fund so that we have to borrow less money. And in these beginning years, we knew that we didn't have as much need in operating. So until we have built the actual buildings and need to hire those faculty and hire the staff who are going to be in there and fund the programs, we were continuing to add additional funding into that capital. So we'd already planned for that. We know that that will go down. We expect it will go down again next year to even out to the amount that we actually will need to fund for the COP annual expenses. There we go. So now we're going to move on to the technology fee fund, moving away from the operating. So this is the first of those credit hour fees. You'll actually see that we are looking to do a smaller draw from the fund balance in next year. Part of this is because we have increased credit hours, so that means increased revenue to this budget. You'll see that as a theme over the next several ones that are based on that credit hour fees. And then we also have a decrease in expenses. This is not because we plan to do less, but that is actually a shift over to the operating budget where we think that those expenses will be better utilized because some of it's already being budgeted there. The student services fee, again, we're seeing an increase in revenue. We actually are looking at an increase in the expenses in here, which for the most part is going to relate to salaries and some of those contractual increases. It does not, as Mark said, does not at this point include an increase to that basic needs scholarship and the other pieces for SARC. But even the 550 draw from fund balance, there would be several more $100,000 available in fund balance that if we wanted to look at adding additional funds mid-year, if that's all spent, that's all within the budget. Moving on to the college and student activities fee, you'll see that there's an extra $100,000 draw from fund balance. This is specifically reserved for athletics postseason travel. We, of course, hope that every year our archers do well and that we have lots of postseason expenses. And so we want to make sure that whether they do or not, we have that funding set aside specifically for that. We did it as a draw from fund balance, knowing that that way, in case, unfortunately, we don't have as good of a year, we're not tying up budget dollars that we could have used for something else. So the expectation is going forward that we would do that as a potential usage from fund balance. And that way, if it's not needed in that year, or it's not the entire amount needed that year, it would just still remain in the fund balance. So next we have our capital projects list. So that very first item, the Transformed, again, the $25.97 million is that holding account, as I said. So it's not tied to a specific project, but it is going into that pool of funds that is offsetting how much we need to borrow. The individual projects that we are recommending for funding are all listed in the budget book. So I wanted to show a little bit of transformed and how that differs. This is not a separate budget for us. So some of this comes in the operating, some of it's in capital, but we do have a page in the budget book so that you can see exactly what's being spent out of there for an increased transparency. And you can see that we're projecting that increased number of positions. That is a head count of 44 for the coming year, but about 21 of those are only budgeted for a half year. So you can see here pretty clearly that that draw or transfer to capital is lower, and we would expect that to be lower again next year because those half-year positions are all going to become a full-year position. So we have still about 900,000 where we expect to drop that capital transfer down to what we had been planning on spending for the annual COP payments. Of course, we have the other funds that are all listed in your budget book, but we won't go through them in the interest of time. But all the detail is there except for restricted, which will be there in June. So as mentioned, we'll come back to the guidelines. That first one, salary and benefit categories, we don't want them to exceed 75% of the general operating budget. Again, the general operating budget is those four main budgets combined: operating, tech fee, student services, and college and student activity. So this budget as presented is at 67.4%. Capital fund commitments, excluding STLCC transformed for next year, are 2.7%, well below the 8% cap. And then the leasehold bond payments in the budget as presented is 1.1%. We know that that will be changing, though, in the new year because we don't have the new COPs reflected in there yet. So that is the draft FY25 budget. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Are there any questions for Sherry and Nicole? Yep.
I have a question. You mentioned state appropriations.
Yes.
What about federal appropriations?
So we don't have any federal appropriations that go into our normal operating budget, although certainly in our student aid budget, there's a lot of pass-through grants, so federal Pell grants show up in there. We will also, in the restricted budget, get grants at a federal level. But as far as our operating budget, we don't have federal funds.
There you go. Other questions? Thank you so much. And I know board last time, just to let you know, in the June meeting, we'll have the staffing allocation sheet for us to be able to know like how many positions, as she talked about, 40 some new positions. We'll be able to know which salary grades and all that. There are in the budget book, though, kind of what the new positions are, but then we'll have the total of how many positions are being allocated, how many are vacant as of July 1st and all that, so we can have that as well.
Yes.
Any other questions for Sherry? Okay. I guess it's Mark's meeting, so Mark, you're up again.
Supplier diversity. So let Muha get that up. Okay. As you know, Ann Kearney-Owen, who is our supplier diversity manager, has put this together, and she's out on maternity leave. So we'll try and answer your questions, but if you have questions I can't answer, I'll find out. So, and she had a boy, by the way. Oh, I think it was 7 pounds 8 ounces and 23 inches. I think that's what it was. So anyway, so this is this is through March 31st. So this is a preliminary look. When we come back in August, we come back with a full year report. So let's see if we can get it moving here. There we go. Oops, we're going too far. So in the report, this is in your board docs, is the definition of what a MWBE, M being minority and W being woman, is 51% owned and managed by those persons. So each one of them, we have a separate goal, and we'll talk about those goals. So the goals are for contracting and consulting, which is really HART, and the contract side of it is 15 and 12%. And then on supplies and services, which comes through the normal purchasing process, we try for 14 and then 5. So this just gives you a progress summary of where we've been and what we've been doing by year. When I go to 24, this year we conducted utilization reports. We've organized a supplier diversity workshop on the Forest Park campus. I think we did that on April 12th. We had about 10 people come to that, and they were set up so that they could see what was coming up for us in terms of supplies and services that they might be able to bid on. In addition, it says here we participated in the Flipped and Script via the St. Louis Anchor Action Network, where we meet directly with diverse suppliers. There's another item on here, though, that we did, which was we have a company called Viva that we contracted with. It was a minor contract dollar-wise, but it was they took our vendor list and then made sure who was actually in the list for MWBE in the marketplace. So we did that, and so that allowed us to adjust our vendors in the vendor list. That would be an ongoing thing, something that we probably would do every 3 to 5 years as it continues to evolve. For supplies and services, we did a lot of improvement on the WBE. We got up to 8%, and then on the MBE, we went down a little to 6.33%. And this is a challenge. Supplies and services is our challenge, and I'll come back to that as to why that's a challenge. But we're committed to getting higher rates. We just we got to figure out. We got to be a little smarter as to how we're going to do it. Now we'll come back to that. In consulting and contracting, we're doing well in WBE, 17%, and then 11.45 in MBE. So that. A lot of that is related to Transformed. We included that as a separate column from the other items on FY24, but Transformed allows us to get up higher. So, for example, on the Parrott contract, you approved an $800,000 additional item to increase the MWBE for the construction out at Flow Valley. The pie charts are really just tell you the dollars that were involved in these, and so the total spend for the supplies and services through the third quarter was $12.7 million. Again, part of the problem you get into with percentages is that some of the vendors, if anything is intellectual property, which is software, anything is software, it's virtually impossible to try and figure out how to one program doesn't necessarily do what another program does. So when we talk about the spend, then why these numbers couldn't be higher, some of that comes into play. On the consulting and contracting, the spend was $74.9 million, and that this was through March 31st. Some of this would include the payments that were made in April, so there's some accrual going on here because I showed you that we spent $64 million when I did the quarterly report. So Transformed overall, the total spent, and that is not spent, actually it's spent or contracted because we have not spent $287 million as to date. As a matter of fact, I should have done this in the quarterly report, but as of before the May payments, which will be next Thursday, we're at approximately $100 million of expenditures on Transformed. As of next Thursday, I will be at $120 million. We had roughly $19 million. Of that, then you got to deduct out what we can get back from the state on the match grants. So we're right on target as it relates to debt financing and everything else that we're trying to accomplish. Again, so for right now for fiscal 25, we're saying go with the same percentages. We're not offering any increase in the percentages, but we will come back and talk about how we're going to do this. Again, for 25, we're going to actively recruit MWBEs into it. We're going to do some more supplier diversity workshops. We're going to, in Bonfire, which is our program for doing bids, it's kind of all over the map whether or not somebody was doing 5% or 0%. It was kind of left up to the manager. So we're going to say that we're going to put just a flat 5% in there now, and we might raise that at a later date. But as of right now, that there's a 5% of the total score will go for an MWBE to increase our participation. The Anchor Network. And the second to last item, report MWB utilization on procurement cards. And this is where I was telling you that it's a challenge because whether it's Amazon is a problem from this supplier diversity lane. If you need something and you don't want to go get it and you want it the next day, obviously Amazon is how you get it. So the question is, when somebody is doing that, how do you impose upon them the supplier diversity lane? And as of March 31st, there was $1,233,000 approximately of P card transactions that were under policy and everything was fine. But I'm just saying there's $1.2 million. So out of that, we have not been able to capture, and we're going to figure out a way to do that, capture the MWBE for procurement card purchases. One of the things that I've toyed around with, and Ann and I have talked about this, and I'll come back to in August with you, is that going forward, if we want everybody to participate in this from the departmental level, but if you can get something cheaper than you could if you went through an MWBE, then they're going to say, well, why do I have to take it out of my budget and do that? So what we thought about possibly doing is allocating a dollar amount in the supplier diversity budget and saying, okay, you can buy that and we'll pay for the 5% or whatever that difference is, and maybe get the numbers up. We just got to figure out how to make that work in our environment. So when she gets back, we'll talk about how to accomplish that. The second thing is we want to try and incorporate the last item, Tier 2 MWBE utilization. We have contractors, we have people who use MWBE, and we want to see what those numbers are and maybe see if that can help us with our numbers. So if we contract with you, Craig, and you use MWBE as subcontractors, we want to make sure we identify all that. So we will come back in August with a full report, and as I said, we're shooting for the no increase in the utilization goals, but we may still adjust that at a later date.
Mark, I want to thank you and your team. I think certainly when this came about, I don't even know how many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe, I can't remember. I would say your team has certainly embraced it and taken the kind of the board directive seriously and being serious about what our goals are. And I think to continue to be creative, even saying about can we put money in the budget to allocate to help department budgets to purchase WB and MBE. I think thinking outside the box and not just trying to please the board by saying we're doing things, but really thinking through all the steps of even P cards of how can we capture some things and how can we offer fairs and other ways to get things. I know the board's taken some action over time of picking a different contractor or whatever that might cost more money because we firmly believe, to me, it aligns directly with our mission and vision as an organization that we want to make sure. And so I personally appreciate all the team's efforts of taking this seriously and not just trying to say, yeah, we're trying really hard, which a lot of places like to say they're trying hard on things. But I would certainly think you all are one of the leaders in this work in the nonprofit education sector, certainly in this region, because some boards have this is not even a discussion. It's not even considered. And I think you're definitely on the right step. And I certainly appreciate all the effort how serious you all are taking it. Other comments? Guess I'm right on point tonight with my comments. So thank you so much again. And will she be back from maternity leave from her baby in August, or will she still be? She should be back. Okay.
She should be back. And I'm not going to go home crying tonight.
Yes, no crying and no sending. We won't have her come back until it's. Don't tell her good job until she's off her maternity leave, because we don't want to bother her while she's on leave. So thank you again for your team's work. We certainly appreciate it. Next item is the recommended approval of our 25-26 academic calendar. Oh, I'm sorry. We need to approve the fiscal year 25 minority-owned business and BE, women-owned businesses program goals as presented. Is there a motion to approve for item 3.1? Anyone?
So moved.
It's been moved by Robinson, second by Graham. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Abstentions? Nays? Ayes have it. Thank you. Item 3.2, academic calendar for 25-26. On there,
I move that we approve the academic calendar.
thank you.
Second.
Second, thank you. It's been moved by Larson, second by Robinson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Abstentions? Nays? Ayes have it. Thank you so much. Item 4.1 is approval of consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
It's been moved by G. Second by Graham. There's no discussion on consent. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Nays? Ayes have it. The Chancellor, it's up to you, Dr. Pittman. Chancellor's report.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Good evening, everyone. And I just thought I would focus on one thing tonight, and that's to provide you with a legislative update. Well, actually, two things. Dr. Larson wanted me to present some information about the superintendent breakfast that we had on Monday. But we have one day left in the session, and we'll all be so happy when it's over. And I'll go into a little more detail about what's hanging out there right now. But they did approve a budget, and kind of go through these right now. These are things that are of interest to us here in St. Louis. But House Bill 3, the core funding, they included a 3% increase. We will actually get most of that with the new MCCA equity funding model. So that's a big improvement over the last few years. So we're thankful for that. I also wanted to put in the A+ program was also renewed at about $62 million. I think all of us in St. Louis could probably do a better job with A+, including the school districts as well as us. There are other parts of the states that utilize that fund a lot more than we do per capita or per high school student. So we need to be aware that that's available. I talked to student affairs staff about this, and strategies we can use to get more A+ fund usage for our students coming into the community college. We also received $2 million, that's Mo Excel's funding in House Bill 3 for the LPN program at Flow Valley that will go into the new healthcare building there. So that's a big plus for us. Okay, in terms of capital projects, we were reappropriated $17.4 million for Flow Valley healthcare building. And that's the balance of, we originally received $20 million, and Mark has spent down a little bit of that. So we have the remainder of this year, I think fiscal year 25, to spend the $17.4 million, which we will.
The general date is December 31st, 24. But if this passes, it would go to.
All right. Section 2.246, there's about $41 million for the healthcare technology building at Wildwood. Again, the total amount for that was around 42, and you've spent down a little bit of that, and we're under the same timeline there. So, if approved over the last 3 years, we will receive $67.25 million in capital projects in Mo Excels from the state. That's really phenomenal. I'm not sure the college has received anywhere near that kind of funding from the state in the past, so we should be very thankful and happy for that. It's extending our SDLC transform dollars by a lot. That's a lot of extra funds than we had originally planned for. So that's a good cause for celebration. I feel really confident about the Mo Excel capital funds because they were all in the governor's recommended budget. We worked with the governor's office in getting that all established. The House and Senate have approved the amount, so we think that will just follow suit here going forward. Our transfer bill, anyone that saw it and we got it put in front of them, they voted yes, but it's not going to happen tomorrow, folks. There's not enough time. There's still a lot of dysfunction going on over in the Senate right now. That's the bad news for this bill. The good news for a couple other bills is we hope that the property tax reduction bills will time out and die tomorrow for another year. So we'll see what happens. They've lumped the property tax reduction bills in with two other very large bills that I think if it does get to the floor, there may be some built-in tripwires that will stop it from happening before 6 o'clock tomorrow night. At least we'll keep our fingers crossed that all times out. No floor vote scheduled as of tonight for any of these bills that we either support or don't support. And we continue to receive great support from all our legislators. The legislators really like the community college, so you should feel really, really good about that. It just speaks to everybody's great work here at St. Louis Community College.
Well, let's hope it doesn't change if we get different numbers.
Yeah, exactly. So then there's a little extra here that McKenna and I put in, $100,000. This was not something that we talked to the governor about initially, so this is something new that we have to get it through the veto process, but this is for a pilot program for youth apprentices. And with our early college programming, we're aligning a lot of our students with companies and employers to get some paid internship experiences while they're enrolled in high school and here at St. Louis in an early college program. And so we would like to create a position to get into more employer sectors because we think there's that much opportunity for our dual credit and dual enrollment and early college students going forward. So we have to push this through the veto process. I've already reached out to a lot of the governor's staff and we'll try to keep it in. I think it's hopeful because it's a small amount. We're not talking about millions of dollars here, and we know the governor is very supportive of any bill that has apprenticeship funding in it. So we'll hopefully get that through the process. That concludes my report.
Superintendent Breakfast, did you want to?
And I had one other item from Craig. Thank you, Dr. Martin. Craig attended the superintendent breakfast that we had at Flow Valley on Monday. And I know the staff have heard this 3 or 4 times from me, but I'll say it again. In 2015, we had the same invitation that went out while we were in COSAN. And for those of you who can remember, we could have held the event in the small conference room at COSAN because only a few people showed up. And I think they were all counselors. Well, you fast forward to today, and we had about every superintendent there from the district. The room was full and overflowing with people. And Elizabeth, I don't know if Dr. Perkins is still here or not. She may have already taken off, but she did a great job. Her and Ellen Wattrich and the whole early college dual credit team did a wonderful job of hosting the event. And Andrew, you can help me remember, but I think we presented the schools with a lot of awards in terms of increased enrollment in dual credit, percentage of enrollment in dual credit, early enrollment or dual enrollment. But we also, at the end, we show how much we save the families that enroll at the college. And I believe, what was the total amount, Andrew?
$11 million.
So it was $11 million, and everybody in the room, we really weren't trying to sell anything that day. But it's like every superintendent and counselor in the room are like, this is really valuable to our students and their parents. So we think this is going to be quite a growth market for us going forward in the future. So I want to commend the staff that put this event together. They did a terrific job. Dr. Perkins and her team in early college do a great job in making this all happen. And I don't remember the specific numbers, but it's a significant part of our enrollment now. What are we, over 2,000 students? When you combine dual credit, dual enrollment, early college. It's significant in what it means for the college. So Craig wanted me to share that. Craig's been around as long as I have, so he was favorably impressed by what he saw on Monday. And we think great things still to come with that.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for Dr. Pittman? Okay, item 6.2, board chair. Just want to welcome our newest board associate, Miss Lisa Moravik over there, who, if we can give her a round of applause, who's our newest board associate, who will get to make everything happen for our board meetings and all those other fun sunshine requests and other things that happen for everything. So we welcome her and excited to have her join the board. Certainly excited for Sunday's commencement and excited to see all of our graduates, and hopefully the weather looks nice on Sunday as of now. No tornado weather or anything like that. So no flash flooding or just flash parking job issues is about the only thing that will happen on Sunday, because there's never great parking over there, and that's always a nightmare. So are there any citizens wishing to address the board for other concerns?
There are none.
Thank you. Are there any other board members who have any comments?
I just want to say that this has been a very good board meeting, all this good information, especially about the finances. I wish so many of the people had not left. So would you all please share the good news with them, your friends who left, that we are really in a good spot right now, and I'm very proud of all the work that you all are doing, and I'm so proud of this board that works so closely together to get the work done, and especially to have our chancellor to be the leader up here, and he is keeping his promise. When I remember the interview, I said, could you promise us at least 5 years? And he has surpassed the 5 years. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Graham. Any other comments from the board? Thank you so much. Seeing that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
It's been moved by Graham. Second by Robinson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.